Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition of the Arms Bumanlag project, coming to you live from beautiful Lamsburg, Ontario, on what is quickly becoming the crunch before Christmas. As we wrap up 2021, we are in episode 40. Happy to have you along for the ride this evening. We are live on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And then don't forget, you can catch up past episodes on our one-stop shop website. We just launched it today, armsbumanlag.com. All of the content that you hear and see here on the show, including some work we've done with other groups here locally, is on that website. So please check it out for yourself. As we usually do, we have very interesting and awesome guests. Tonight is no different. We'll welcome my guest in the next couple of minutes, but we do a bit of housekeeping before we get to the nitty gritty of the show. And it's a very timely and a very topical show tonight with my awesome guest. But last week, we had the lovely Carol Crooks, otherwise known as Clairol the Clown, on the show. We brought her back out of retirement. We had an awesome chat with Clairol about what she's up to, what she's going to be doing. That's up on Spotify and on YouTube. And then my buddy Scott from Paper Heroes on Howard Avenue, one of the hardest working guys in the city of Windsor, is going to join us live from what is the final stretch before Christmas from the shop on Monday night. Got a couple more episodes to go before we wrap up this season of the show, and then hopefully some big news coming up in 2022 for this particular program. So, as always, thank you so much for spending some time with us. And a big shout out to my guest tonight, because she's probably one of the hardest working and busiest people in the healthcare industry. Over the years in my time in media, I've had my chance to sit down with her, interview her, get to know her from an interviewee lens, and then getting to work with her and get some great guidance from her as well through her role as CEO and president at Hôtel-Dieu Healthcare. She's been a calming voice, as so many people have responded to her announcement coming on the show in terms of the pandemic. She is an exceptionally proud Amma to her grandchildren, and she is somebody who has devoted a large portion of her life to helping others. And I think that's going to be the theme tonight, about what we can do to kind of talk to each other and be kinder to each other as well. She's got a lot of stories to tell, and I'm very honored and very happy to welcome Janice Kaffer, President and CEO from Hôtel-Dieu Healthcare, live to the show tonight. Janice, always good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. Thank you so much, Arms, and I'm delighted to be here with you from my sofa here in Stony Point.
Oh, God bless you. And I love the photos. I mean, there's so much stuff I got to talk to you about tonight, and I think there's so many angles we can take tonight too. But I love the photos and the interaction that you have on social media with some of the photos that you post from Stony Point. It's a beautiful area and a beautiful place to sort of, I think, unplug and unwind.
Yeah, my husband and I moved out here a couple of years ago as a pre-retirement home, and we live on the water. And we started a small renovation of the kitchen that ended up being the renovation of the whole house. It was that old story about how you buy a pillow and then you bring the pillow home and you have to change the couch and then you have to change it. So it was kind of like that for me, and so it was quite the undertaking, but it's turned out wonderfully. We're super happy here, and it's a home for my grandkids. They spend a lot of time here. You mentioned the shorties, so Allie, Nathan, and Courtney, and it's never too full. It's often too empty because my family isn't here all the time. So it's a home that needs kids. So they're actually coming this weekend, actually.
God bless you. And I know just through the years how important it is to have that connection for you with your grandkids and with your husband Bernie too, and having that family aspect. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about tonight too, in terms of continuing that and some of the big announcements coming with you. Obviously, retiring. Talk to you about that too. But topical answer. I mean, here we are a year later, Omicron, and
Yeah.
your thoughts, your takeaways, and I mean, like, it's 2 years into this, Jan. you know.
Yeah, it has been 2 years. It's been 2 long, hard years. I was talking to someone today about this, and it's been emotionally and spiritually and psychologically and physically, in all the ways that we live our lives as human beings. It's been difficult, and for those of us in the healthcare system, it's been exhausting on multiple levels, and I think we all want it to be over. 80 some odd percent of us went out and got our 2 vaccinations, and we did what we were supposed to do, and we stayed home when we were asked to stay home, and we wear our masks when we're told to wear our masks, and we do all the things as good citizens of Ontario, good citizens of Windsor Essex. And then Omicron comes along and just upsets the whole thing all over again. And it's anger. Everybody's angry about it and tired of it. And some folks have checked right out. They don't want to know anything about it. And I've talked to people who said to me, well, I'm just done. I'm done with it all. And frankly, I've said that myself. I've said I'm just done. I'm done talking about COVID. But then I find myself talking about it again and again, because it is an existential threat to us now, because this particular virus, this variant, can break through the vaccinations. And the vaccinations are incredibly important to keep us out of hospital. And so if you haven't got it yet, please get it. If you haven't got your booster, your third shot, please get it. But I think people are just so tired. And I think back to my grandparents and my great grandparents who lived through the wars, and for years and years and years they had to sacrifice, and for years they had to go through untold hardships. My in-laws are from Germany, and they were on the other side of the Second World War. My mother-in-law grew up in a rural part of Germany, and she told stories about her clothes were made from the parachute material that was that materials were dropped, and we've watched movies. I grew up watching movies about the war, and I thought I understood what people went through, but I don't think anybody did. And I think about that a lot these days.
Yeah, it's been a long haul, I think, for everybody, and I think certainly from a healthcare lens too. There's a lot of pivoting that happens, and it happens at breakneck speed too. How are the staff doing? How are the frontliners doing? How's everybody doing? Dealing with this.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of reporting on the human resource challenges. I think staff in the front lines are tired. Some have decided not to do it anymore. So we've seen some exits from some of the frontline professions already, particularly nursing. Nursing is extremely difficult right now in terms of trying to recruit registered nurses in particular. I think they are working long hours mentally. In some cases, we started out the pandemic back in January and February of 2020 with pots banging and car parades and honking and signs. And then we're here today where staff are having to fight protests to get into work in some institutions, and people are accusing healthcare workers of the big lie. And so I think there are morale issues in the healthcare sector broadly. I don't know that a lot of us have started thinking about how to fix that, or how to address that, because we're still in the thick of dealing with the reality of the pandemic. But there is the piper will come due at some point in time, and culture, internal healthcare culture in organizations like Hôtel-Dieu and other hospitals, and outside of hospitals arms, community providers, home and community care, long-term care facilities. Folks have been through so much. I think there's healing that's going to have to happen, and how we do that, I don't know. I think that's going to be a big question, but I think the biggest thing I would say is that staff just want it all to be over. I've heard from lots of frontline who've said to me, I just want to go back to normal. And I've heard that from my family. I've heard that from general citizens in terms of social media and stuff like that. But I don't even know what normal is going to be when all this is over. Um, I think healthcare is going through a fundamental shift, and I think there's some things that are going to have to change. And what that change is going to look like, I don't think has been fully defined yet.
Did you ever think, Jen, in your career that you would be in the midst of this storm? I mean, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's been like wave after wave. Like, did you ever think that you would have to sort of lead through such difficult times, especially and it's not necessarily like a race, right? It's more of like this marathon at this point.
No, short answer is no. I just retired as a registered nurse, so I've retired my registration. So I'm now a retired nurse in preparation for being a former CEO. But I graduated from nursing school in 1984, so I was a nurse for 37 years, and um, I never imagined when I started nursing that I would be a CEO. I never imagined my dream job when I started as a registered nurse was to work in an emergency department, which I did. I'm an old emerge nurse, and then I thought, oh well, what if I ran the emergency department? That would be a goal to aim for, right? And so for the longest time, that was where I'd set my ceiling. I wanted to be a nurse manager in an emergency department. And over the years, my career aspirations changed. But when I was in Nova Scotia, we had a bomb threat in my little hospital in Nova Scotia. And
Wow.
I had to work with my CEO to evacuate our hospital. And I told that story for a long time about evacuating a hospital, getting all of the patients down to the evacuation center, rolling people down the street on stretchers. I told that story because I thought that was going to be the most significant thing that I ever did in my career. I did. I honestly did. I was the chief nurse at the time in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. Nova Scotia. So for my friends in Nova Scotia that may be watching, hi guys. But I truly believed that was the thing. I truly believed that that was going to be the biggest thing I ever did. And when I left Nova Scotia, they actually made me a little black fake bomb to take with me. Um, so no, I don't think I imagined for 1 second that a pandemic would come. I am a major lover of disaster films, and the cheesier the better. And I think I've watched every post-apocalyptic movie that has ever been made, including all of the ones about, monkeypox and all that kind of stuff. And I always thought to myself, I hope that never happens when I'm here, and then COVID comes. So it's yeah, that's the longer answer, but the short answer was no.
Through all of this and all of the work that you've done, the team has done at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare with partners right across Windsor Essex in all aspects of healthcare. 2 years into this, how do you keep a level head? How do you keep your semblance of you're still Jan, a wife, you're still Jan to grandma, to your grandkids? Like, how do you? Has it been difficult to keep that sort of even playing field?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been pretty public about the fact that I have struggled through some of it. My emotional well being hasn't always been as strong as it could have been, and I certainly didn't take care of myself during the pandemic. For a while, I was doing okay, and then I don't know what happened. It's like a switch turned off, and I wasn't taking care of myself as well as I could have been, and gained a bunch of weight, and wasn't eating well. Enjoyed too many bottles of wine out of my wine fridge, frankly, and really needed some people who I trust around me to say to me, Jan, you need to take some time off. I hadn't taken any vacation, hadn't really thought about myself. I was so focused on looking after what needed to be looked after. I was so focused on getting the stuff done that needed to be done, making sure I was there for the staff, making sure I was there for my people, and trying to keep all of those things, all the balls in the air, that one of the balls that I dropped was my own well-being. And I'm not alone in that. I heard from a lot of people when I started talking about that, just how incredibly important it was that leaders, and I went into being a leader with a great deal of resistance. I remember talking to Lorraine Goddard about that the idea of being a community leader isn't something I had signed up for. But somebody did talk to me about the fact that it was really important to them that I talked about that, because if someone like me, and I say that not because I think I'm all that important, but somebody said this to me, is willing to talk about the fact that I wasn't as healthy mentally as I could have been, and I wasn't looking after myself, that made it feel okay that somebody else could talk about it too. And so I didn't always do that well. But one of the things that I've always talked about for me is life for me is about balance. When things are really good at work, I can handle a whole lot of stuff in my personal life and I can manage. And when things are really good in my personal life, I can handle a lot of stuff at work. But when things aren't balanced in both of those, that's difficult. And during the worst of the pandemic, I couldn't see my family. Like everybody else, I wasn't allowed to see my grandkids. I had to stand outside the window and wave at them from outside. I'm a very involved grandmother with my kids, with my shorties, and that ripped my heart right out of my chest. I just did not deal with that very well. And my husband moved to the upper level of the house for the whole first year of the pandemic for fear of me bringing something home. He has some health issues, so there was some really weird stuff, and like every other citizen that was trying to manage, some parts of it I managed really well, and some parts of it I didn't. And I think that talking about those things is an important part of leadership, and it's an important part of being human and honest. That not everything is easy in life, and you just have to keep slogging on and one foot in front of the other until you get to the other side of what's difficult.
And Jan, I think that's resonated too with some of the feedback and some of the connections you've made over the years, not just even from a pandemic lens, but when you talk about that authentic leadership through that community lens too. I mean, you brought up Lorraine, and she's a lovely individual too. I'd love to engage with her on this program, hopefully in the new year as well, from a United Way standpoint. But um, certainly, I think people in this day and age, especially in the last couple of years, they can sense when there's that authenticity, right? And it's almost like that being raw, that being real feed, or that connection that you might have with somebody, and to see something in your position, running the ship, or at least guiding the ship. It makes them, I think there's a bit of comfort that they get from that, to saying, hey, wait a second, they're maybe dealing with the same things that I'm dealing with. And then I can feel a little bit better to know that, we're in this together. There's that authenticity piece. You know what I mean?
I do. I think authenticity is a big part of leadership. I think it's a big part of being a good human. I think too many people wear too many masks in life, and so I found it exhausting. One of my performance appraisals early in my time as a manager, as a leader, and it was a woman named Sue. She did a performance appraisal with me, and she said to me, Jan, you have lots of potential. You could go really far with your career, but one of the things you got to be careful about is that you overshare. I thought to myself, I overshare. But she said, you talk too much to your people, you share too much about your personal life. That you need to keep a line between you and the people that report to you. You need to separate yourself. And so I tried that. I tried that for the longest time. She actually sent me off for emotional intelligence training, and in the emotional intelligence training, I learned that actually wasn't good advice. That someone like me, who really needs that connection with people. I'm not, I don't like artificial relationships. So I'm very introverted in my personal life. I don't have a ton of friends. I don't make friends easily because I have high expectations of people. I have high expectations of myself. And so for me, um, you know, pretending to be something that I wasn't is exhausting. So my life, my personal life is very much intertwined. And you mentioned about pictures that I share of my grandkids. My daughter is okay with that. And, it's really about making sure that my life it's a continuum. There are times when I'm working at home, and there's times when I'm thinking about home when I'm at work, and I don't have a separation, an artificial separation between those two. And the people that my grandkids know me oftentimes very similarly to the way some of the people I know really personally well at work know me, because I'm the same person all the time. It's too hard to be two different people for me.
I think it's awesome. I think it's great to see that you have a life that is very much outside of work, but is also very much, again, you're carrying a lot of those qualities that your family is instilling in you, and vice versa into the workplace too. Because I think quite often you hear from folks that, oh, we're a family here, but I mean, oftentimes you see the opposite, or you'll see that sort of culture not necessarily framing what they want to portray. And I think when you have something like that, like at Hôtel-Dieu, I go back to some of the lectures that and I guess information sessions that we were doing way back in 2019, and just to see some of the camaraderie that happens in the halls at Hôtel-Dieu. It's really nice to see that there's that sort of and through the worst times and the best times, right? There's nice to see that connection between everybody, or at least there attempts to be, right, on a somewhat daily basis.
Yeah, I love the people at Hôtel-Dieu. I mean, my heart and my soul is in that organization. I I I can't tell you how it feels to go in the morning and go into the coffee shop, and Carol knows exactly what my coffee order is. To going down the halls and seeing Dave the painter and saying, "Hey, Dave, how's it going?" And know that I've met his wife when I was at the village at St. Clair, and to head down to the nursing units and the inpatient units and talk to the nurses and talk to Dahlia on RH1 or for me there is so many relationships there, and families aren't all perfect, right? So when I talk about Hôtel-Dieu as a family, it's not because it's perfect. We have our arguments, we have disagreements. Staff don't always agree with the decisions I make, and I don't always agree with the decisions that they necessarily make, and the same with my management team. But we work it out. I think we try very hard to have a culture where there's mutual respect, where there's an openness and a transparency. When I know something is going to happen, I try very hard to make sure that staff get that information. I have a CEO advisory council, which is made up of frontline staff that talk to me and talk to me very openly about issues and concerns, and they ask questions. We have a youth advisory council. So we've created, I think in many ways at Hôtel-Dieu, we've created a lot of different ways in which the culture can be reinforced um, by the staff themselves. And so, we talked a little bit before we came on air about the importance of culture. And I think the one thing I would say is that, that notion of tone at the top is an important piece. But the culture lives and breathes with the frontline people who work in the organization, especially an organization like a hospital where our business, our core function is providing care and service. So it doesn't matter ultimately at the end of the day whether I think we have a good culture or not. It really matters whether or not the frontline staff think they do, and if the patients experience a good culture. That really is where culture lives, is what we used to say in Nova Scotia, at the coalface, at that interaction between the frontline staff and the patient or the client.
It goes back to, I think that I mean, I hate to use the word customer service, but it is very much customer service,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the folks who are coming in and trusting you uh, with the care of their loved ones. Like I was saying to Carrie, my wife, the other day, we were just kind of reminiscing about Sick Kids and our journey, and I said, I'll never forget Dr. Hickey at Sick Kids, who was the heart surgeon that worked on Liam, and him actually spending more than enough time with us, kind of mapping out exactly what was going on,
Yeah.
and having that sort of personalized a touch, because we're shell shocked. And I'll never forget that for as long as I live. I said, for him to actually walk us through the process, and I know he could have just went, "Here's what we did," but he sort of laid it out as a roadmap, and he was very kind about it. I think that takes a real skill from a healthcare professional standpoint, Jan, because I feel like when they have doctors and nurses are in it, they're making people feel better in their life or death situations, but they're able to even go that extra mile from a kindness perspective. The takeaway from that, I think, from a patient perspective or even a family members, is just huge. It's monumental.
Yeah, I remember Nicole, one of my colleagues and an absolutely fabulous human being. Her little one was at Sick Kids, and she basically articulated a similar feeling about people taking the time and the way in which she felt when they were down at Sick Kids, and we've aspired to do that with our rehabilitation and especially our palliative care, but our rehabilitation and our mental health services. We aspire to be an organization where people feel cared for and cared about. And I talk a lot about kindness because there's an awful lot of mean people in the world, Arms, and there are people who are unintentionally unkind. They just don't think about it. They don't think about you know the way in which their words land on people, especially in the healthcare services when people are vulnerable. And remember, when you're in a hospital, you're scared. You're not in your home environment. You're not feeling confident and you're not feeling powerful. And words will land differently with you when you're in a hospital setting, whether you're the parent of a child who's in care, or whether you yourself are receiving care, or it's your parent that is getting care. No matter where you are in that continuum, how you're spoken to and how you're made to feel is a big part of your entire trust in the system and experience. And so we aspire to do that. Do we always do it 100% great? And have the last 2 years been difficult? Yeah. Yeah. I know that, but I get these amazing letters, as the CEO, I get sometimes not so pleasant calls. But I also get these amazing letters and these amazing notes and emails from people who have had amazing care. And the ones that are really amazing to me and really meaningful are when they take the time to remember the names of the staff that cared for them or for their parent or for their loved one. And they write them down for me. And they say, can you please make sure to let Janice and Bill and Marie know these things. And I do, and we do. And the meaning that comes from that, it's incredible for staff to have someone remember that they cared, and to have that come back around and be thanked for it.
I'm sure you probably hear this all the time, but what I think you've done and the team has done through the course of the pandemic, especially even, I mean, gosh, it's been almost a year to the day where you and Bill, I had Bill on the show a few months ago now, and just talking about the time that you guys really went, quote unquote, not to sound punny, but on the front lines. And you were sort of leading the charge when, folks needed that direction from a leadership standpoint in long term care. Uh, I'm sure you must have been scared doing that, right, Jan? I mean, getting into the front lines and I mean, and outside of what you normally do from a CEO lens, but I know you're a nurse, but just to get in that, there must have been some element of fear.
Oh, heck yeah. I was scared, excuse me for saying it, crapless. Yes, I was. No doubt about it. But so were my staff. So, Bill and I weren't alone there. So Deneen was there, and Deb was there, and Jillian was there, and so many more. And Brandon was there. I'm just trying to remember all the names of all of our staff that were there at the village. And they were all scared. Well, maybe not all of them. I shouldn't speak for them all, but I know a couple of them came to me and told me they were scared. And some of our staff got COVID from that experience, and we're sick. Yeah, we were scared. We didn't have vaccines back then. We didn't know what. I was at the village of St. Clair actually one day when we got the word from Dave Mugie that we were able to start getting some of our healthcare workers in to get vaccinated. And I remember two of the staff that were there came in where we had kind of our little command center at the village. And I said, we're able to get you guys in for vaccine. And I almost wept. I mean, it was to see their faces. I don't think I'll ever forget that. Even if I'm like 80 years old with dementia, I think I'm going to remember that moment because, it's like they went in, staff all across the system, not just mine, the staff at Windsor Regional that were in the ICU and in the emergency department, and the staff at Erie Shores, and all the staff at all the hospitals without vaccines went in to care for people. They were scared, and they did it anyway because that's what we had to do. Who else was going to do it if people didn't do it? If people didn't step up and say, okay, I'm going to do it, I'm going to help. And to me, we needed to be there to support the staff, but we also had an obligation in our community to those individuals who were being cared for at the village and at Augustine Villa in Leamington shortly after that. We had made a commitment that we would support these long-term care and retirement homes. And when you make a commitment, you follow through. And I mean, I think that's also being a good human and being a good professional and being a good community partner.
And here we are in 2021, and things are changing, obviously, into the new year. And your announcement recently to retire. Speaking of somebody who was with you on the front lines, and I know I've known him for a number of years, and I know obviously you've known him for a number of years too. Is Bill? I mean, I think a great guide is eventually take the reins and really lead with your footprint and your, I guess, your vision of what Hôtel-Dieu is, and leading that into the future, because it, like you said, it's going to take some time, I would imagine, Jan, to kind of get things back to an even keel when it comes to what's going to happen post COVID.
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted that Bill is going to be succeeding me, and he will be carrying forward some of the work that we've done, and he will be creating a new vision for Hôtel-Dieu Grace, and he'll be working with the board of directors and the management team and the frontline staff to take Hôtel-Dieu Grace to the next iteration of who we're going to be, and what's going to be next for the organization. The hospital, in some form or another, has existed in Windsor, Essex since 1888, when we were first founded by the sisters and Dean Wagner. And so for me, you know, my 10 years with the organization, almost 10 years, it'll be February that it'll be 10 years that I joined Hôtel-Dieu on Willette before the alignment as the chief nurse. You know, I think I've contributed in those 10 years. I've left a little mark in the long history, and now it's Bill's turn to leave his notch in the wood, so to speak. And I know he's going to do a tremendous job, not just because we've worked together, but because of the man he is and his dedication and commitment to our community, his moral compass, his faith, his belief in the goodness of people, and his genuine commitment to making Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare be the best that it can possibly be. I'm tired, and you know, this next level of recovery needs someone with energy, with enthusiasm. And I remember back in September of 2014, when I came into the job, I was ready to take on the world and change every aspect of everything. And I was so excited, and I bounced around everywhere. My favorite Pooh character is Tigger, and I was like a Tigger. I was bouncing from this to that and everything else. And Hôtel-Dieu has been very busy under my leadership. We've done all kinds of cool things, but I don't have that energy anymore, Arms. And this next level of recovery needs the Tigger energy, and Bill's going to bring that. I have every confidence and a great deal of respect for Bill. And if he's watching, I adore the man, and I know he's going to do super well.
Just a very personable guy. I go back to, you know, for a lot of things in my life has always been going back to, you know, my time at broadcast, because it was such a big part of my life here in Windsor, Essex, from a professional standpoint. But just very much like you, when I first got to meet Bill, it was very warm, very inviting, made me feel as an interviewer very welcomed. And I got to know him through all the different stuff through the years, you know, from city council runs to, is he going to run against for the mayor, and all those different things.
Yes.
And he just a good guy to know, and very community connected too, like yourself,
Yeah.
where, I mean, you're not thinking about the four, well, it's not really four walls, but you're not thinking just about the four walls of the building that you guys are at on Prince Road, but you're really thinking about how those four walls impact the different community groups. Because I mean, one of the things that I wasn't familiar with, but getting to know through your leadership through the healthcare system, was the Prosperous Initiative, and
Yes.
getting to get in with that with Noah Tepperman, and to see you involved in that, it really opened my eyes to fundraising and community connectedness through a different lens, through sort of that data management and data absorption, about how we can kind of hit those different neighborhoods. And I think that's something that you guys, certainly from the Hôtel-Dieu standpoint, should be very proud of, to have those connections in the community.
You know what? Honestly, I think that's one of the things I'm the most proud of, is that we've taken Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare in the last 7 years while I've been CEO, from being um, known as simply a hospital, to being an organization that really has devoted time, energy, and resources to making our community a better place. So, you know, our focus on community building, our commitment to prosper us, our board of directors has supported that initiative, both with my time for a while as the co-chair. I'm the past chair of that initiative now. Um, but also in terms of grants to help get Prosperous off the ground. And a number of our frontline staff and managers are also involved. Hi, Tammy, if you're watching, in the initiative as well. So, you know, for me, Prosper Us, the commitment we've made to our community to contribute to finding innovative ways to bring new housing options to the table. The work we've done to expand community-based mental health services, more police teams, EHS ride-alongs, and all the kinds of things that Sonia Grabowski and her team have been doing. There's so many ways that we've gone beyond the four walls of a hospital to try and make our community a better place. And frankly, that's the job that we should be doing as a community hospital. And I think that's the future of community hospitals. And I think that the evolution to Ontario health teams and the role that hospitals will play in Ontario health teams is going to really define community health differently. And I think we're at Hôtel-Dieu, we've done some of that really heavy lifting already. And I'm very proud of that work. I've adopted Windsor, Essex as my home. I moved here 10 years ago. I love it here. I love the people here. My family, my daughter and my son-in-law and my grandchildren are here. I can't imagine not contributing. And so a plug to anybody who's looking for someone to maybe do some community board work at some point in time. I'm going to have some time, but I'm looking for ways to continue to give back, just not on a full-time basis, because I think there's lots of work we can do. Lots of work still to do to make Windsor Essex a better place for kids, and mostly for kids, but also for seniors and all of the people who really need a hand up.
I want to talk a little bit about that, and those connections that you've made and certainly continue to grow too. I just want to get to some comments too that are coming in here live on the show tonight. Debbie says, "Congrats on your retirement. You were truly one of the heroes through the years and through COVID. Good luck going forward, and best of luck. Fingers crossed." To Bill.
Oh, thank you, Debbie. That's so kind of you. Not, I don't wear the title hero very well, but I do accept that on behalf of all the frontline staff. Thank you.
And Rady says, "Enjoy your retirement. Thank you for serving our community."
Thank you. Thank you.
We've got another one here from our good friend Michelle Suchu at Workforce Windsor Essex. She goes, "You're an incredible example of a strong and compassionate leader. Thank you for your commitment to our region." So,
well, from Michelle, that's incredibly, thank you very much, Michelle. Someone who has given more than a little bit of effort to making our community a better place as well.
It's nice to see, and that's why I wanted to start this live stream podcast, whatever you want to call it, about 6-7 months ago. And I was even saying to Bill when he was on the show too, is that it's nice to have that support and to see some of the good. And I know before we get into sort of those community partnerships as well, but you often speak about this on Twitter too, and I like think you're the best on Twitter because I love in your bio it says if you're a troll, you will be blocked, and it's like,
yep.
You see some of that negativity out there, Jan. You know it, I know it. It's like a broken record half the time, right? And you're just like, enough, right? I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
In the beginning, I tried to be nice and I tried to talk to folks and I tried to kind of, people would say, well, prove it and show me the evidence and all this kind of stuff. And I remember I read somewhere, and I can't remember where I read it, but somebody said, engaging in social media doesn't mean that you're obligated to defend a position. You don't owe anybody any explanations, right? And the amount of disinformation, not misinformation, there are lots of really well-meaning people who are misinformed. That's not an issue. I'll talk to anybody anytime if they have legitimate questions and they really are confused or curious. But people who spread disinformation, I have no time for that. Ain't nobody got time for that. And
I love it.
So yeah, I blocked one day. I blocked 10 people in one day, and that was at the height of people trying to get me to prove. I can't remember what it was, which vaccine was good or not good or something. But no, I'm not. I don't waste my time with that anymore.
Yeah, and nor should you, right? I mean, I recently did this partnership with the Bulimia Anorexia Nervosa Association, Lucy and her team, and
They're
we were
wonderful.
able to. I love Lucy so much. She's such an amazing lady. And we were able to get into some of the schools virtually and talk about cyberbullying. And we were talking a little bit about, and I was saying to a lot of these students, it's like, we don't know, like we're at an age now in 2021 where, if you think even 10 years ago, Facebook was still number one, there was no TikTok, but we're at a point now where we don't really know the ramifications of this constant stream of connectivity and what's that going to look like mental health wise even 10 to 15 years from now. why I believe it's so crucial, and I think pretty much you and I are like that on that same wavelength too. You can address some of those harder topics, but be very positive and try to have a lens of kindness around it. I think people are so angry and they want to just, it says grab your pitchfork and let's go. And I think if we can rely each other to convey some kindness back and forth, even through those dialogues, and have that open mind when you're able to talk about different things online too, I think that's what's lacking in the world, in my opinion.
I don't disagree. I think kindness is one of those overrated soft skills, or soft qualities. I think we've gone down the road. Not to wax philosophically for too long, but we've gone down the road of individualism trumping collective good. And when you really think about what our communities were built on, our communities were built on the notion that neighbors help neighbors, and that we look out for each other. I mean, that's the basics of human culture. It's how we've grown as a species. And so for me, the notion of kindness is inherently, it's what we should do. And my mom and dad raised me that way. My sister's like that, and I think I've done the best I can to raise my two kids, Matt and Katie, that way. And I certainly see that in you can see the lack of it in the way some people interact with each other on social media, and the way in which people who are considered community leaders, politicians, whatever, are attacked for doing their job. And I don't know when we got okay with that, when we got to a place where um, being mean and being unkind and being uncivil was acceptable in our society, but clearly we're there because it's happening all the time. I think it takes a whole lot of people to stand up and say that's not okay, and to make a concerted effort to be kind, to turn that around. And even then, I don't know if that's good enough. Having to legislate safe zones around hospitals so that cancer patients can get in there um, without being harassed, and I where are we when we have to have that? I don't know. So I don't know. I think this is a big topic. We could talk for a long time about it, but I think kindness is something that we should all practice every single day. It would make the world a better place for sure.
And I think when you have that element of kindness, when you're working with different organizations that sort of have the same kind of vision or even have the same kind of MO as your organization, often in healthcare, you talk about working in silos, right? But I think if the pandemic has shown that, like you had said, with from a Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare standpoint, is if those silos are breaking down, and you start to rely on other agencies and other groups to kind of, how can we tackle this problem together collectively? And one of those things I wanted to talk to you about is just the phenomenal work that Hôtel-Dieu is doing with Canadian Mental Health Association, and some of the work that continues to be done despite the pandemic around mental health. Claudia Denboer, I've had a chance to interview her over the years too. I know she's been just a resource and just an excellent person to talk with, and the whole team, Kim Willis at Canadian Mental Health Association too. And that's something that Hôtel-Dieu is continuing to sort of pioneer, so to speak, in this city, because again, this will be something, I think, Jan, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but it's going to continue to be something that we're going to have to tackle, that mental health.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm. Is the feed okay?
Oh yeah, yep. I think it's
Oh,
just
okay, okay,
sometimes the internet's a little wonky, but no, I think it's good. Yep,
okay.
yep.
Well, in terms of mental health, yes, mental health and addictions, all indicators, arms, are that the opioid crisis is worsening through the pandemic. Um, Indicators are that the mental wellness of our communities has suffered. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning. The work that Hôtel-Dieu, Canadian Mental Health Association, Family Services Windsor Essex, and so many others are doing in this area is, I think, incredibly important. If if there was one thing that I would say about what I think the future will hold, is I think the future should and needs to um, hold a system that is easier for people who are experiencing difficulties with their mental wellness, a system that's easier to navigate, easier to find a way to get help, and a lot clearer for individuals and family members to be able to figure out where to start when they're having difficulties. I've talked to so many people over the years that I've been doing this job about their experiences with the system and how difficult it is for them to get help when they need it. And so that has been a big part of the work that I've really tried to do at Hôtel-Dieu. And one of my best colleagues to work with, Claudia Denboer at CMHA, the two of us have shared a vision for a much more seamless and much more integrated community to hospital-based mental health service. And the work that's ahead of us as we partner with Windsor Regional to bring the acute mental health beds over to Hôtel-Dieu, and then figure out how to continue to support the emergency department and patients at the acute hospital who have mental wellness issues and mental health issues and addictions issues. There's a lot of heavy lifting ahead.
I think we're having some issues here with the internet connection with Jan. Let me see if I can get her back on the stream here. If you're just joining the show, we are chatting with Jan Kaffer, who is the president and CEO of Hôtel-Dieu Healthcare. She has been a welcome resource to so many of us in Windsor and Essex County. She's going to be retiring as of April 2022, and over for Jan Kaffer for that segue. And Jan has been talking over the last little bit about connecting with the community, what that means to her, and what that means to folks who continue to access care here locally, and what that looks like, I think, for a lot of folks, as well as connecting with the community at large. Janet's speaking a little bit about how she can learn from the takeaways from the pandemic and what her staff has learned as well. So had some fantastic conversations with Jan on that as well. And I think she's back with us now as we continue on. That's okay. It's all good. It's the beauty of, that's why I always tell people, it's the beauty of the internet, right? It's convenient. We can just hop on, but God bless Bell Internet sometimes. That's
Yeah,
all I gotta say, right?
and it's windy here, and I'm in the county too. So
That's right.
sometimes my signal gets a little wonky.
That's
I
okay.
don't know where I lost you.
No, you were just talking a little bit about the mental health aspect and working with Windsor Regional to sort of get those acute care beds as well.
Yeah, so I think I come from a family where we've had mental health issues in the past. My mom had some serious issues with depression and lived her life with medication in order to continue to be well and healthy. And I remember some times in the past where we didn't know where to turn and didn't know what to do, and we didn't know much about mental wellness and mental illness. And the work that CMHA has done in their Soul Focus project to really get out there and talk to the public and to do that promotion of wellness and to remove the stigma around mental health and to help people to understand that it's okay. If your brain isn't working the same way that somebody else's brain is working, just like maybe for somebody who's diabetic, their pancreas doesn't work the way somebody else's does. I think that kind of work is so incredibly important and continues. And as we go forward with more and more people being open about the fact that life is hard sometimes, I think that it's easier to talk about now than it used to be. 20 years ago, we didn't talk about it. 30 years ago, people didn't know about it really, or didn't want to know about it. The work ahead of us is significant, though, because going into the pandemic, the mental health and addiction system was severely underfunded. We've been able to attract some funding to Hôtel-Dieu Healthcare, and I have to do a major shout out to Associate Minister Michael DeBolo, who has done amazing work with Hôtel-Dieu to help us to bring new dollars and new services here. But there is so much work ahead of us, Arms, in the mental health and addictions field, and it's too fractured and too scattered. And frankly, there's too many people dabbling in mental health. We need to really take a look at mental health and addictions being a specialty service, and we need to figure out how to do better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, with those partnerships that you've cultivated with Claudia, and certainly the work that CMHA does on a day to day basis too. I think hopefully in the next little bit we'll start to make some headroom there too, and tackle those issues head on. Jen,
I hope
overall, do
so.
you, any regrets, from your
Oh,
time as CEO?
um, I don't know. I have lots of regrets as a human. I have lots of regrets about decisions I've made in my adult life, and but as far as at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare goes, I've always tried to do the right thing, and it's one of my mantras. If you're not sure of what to do the right thing. And if someone is pushing you into multiple directions, go back to who you are, what the values are, and do the right thing. So I've always tried to do the right thing. Um, are there things I wish I had been smarter about? Things that in the early days I wish I knew more about. Like if I could go back, I would do it differently now. But it's not really a regret. It's really, I guess, part of the learning curve. There's no manual that comes when you get a CEO job. And frankly, Ken Dean, who had the job before me, made it look awfully easy. So I went in thinking that, hey, I'm going to do it just like he did. And oh my
Sure.
gosh, what a rude awakening. And Bill may experience a bit of that too. Um, but as long as we do the right thing, I think leadership is in one part easier and one part harder, because sometimes doing the right thing isn't the easy thing. And some of the things we've had to do at Hôtel-Dieu Grace haven't been easy, but they've been the right thing.
What are you most proud of from your time as CEO?
Um, there's a number of them. I'm super proud of the team that I was able to build at the hospital. I'm super, super proud of the work that team has done in its entirety. So the work on mental health, the work in rehabilitation, the ability to bring new funding to mental health and addictions. Some of the young leaders that are coming up, Tammy and Patrick and Sarah and DJ, and so many others. And I'm proud of all of those. I'm really, really proud of that work. I think mostly I'm proud of the role that Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare has been able to move to, and we talked a bit about that. I think that when I took on the job of CEO, it was shortly after alignment, and we didn't know what we were going to be. We didn't know what job we could fill in the community besides the piece of doing the actual frontline care and rehab and complex medical and mental health stuff. Um, I think the work we've done in community, the work we've done in starting to have conversations about a role a hospital can play in a broader community sense, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm really proud of the work that Prosper Us is doing. I I think about the work that's possible there. But I think mostly I'm proud of the fact that Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare is an organization where care matters, where staff have a voice, where our patients and families have a voice, and where the values aren't just a sign on the wall, that the values are embedded in the things that happen in the organization on a day over day basis. And that was not easy. And it won't be easy to hold on to in the next stage of development. I think that's a long answer, but it's hard to pick just one arms.
Well, again, on behalf of everyone in Windsor, Essex, I just want to thank you again for spending some at least an hour with me tonight, on the show, but for everything you've done. I think you've been an inspiring leader and somebody that has been, again, a guiding voice through the craziness of this last almost 2 years now. And I think the city and the region and the people and the families are better for your leadership. And I know, Bill and I were saying that on the show when he was on too, that it's been a real blessing to have somebody at the helm. So thank you,
Oh,
honestly.
thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who supports Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare, and everybody who supports all the staff who work at all the hospitals and all the healthcare workers, because remember, healthcare happens in homes, from home and community care, long-term care facilities, hospitals, doctors' offices, and clinics. And all the healthcare staff need all the love and support that all of you can offer them over the next little bit of time. So thank you in advance for all the things that all of the people that are listening to this are going to do to make life better for all those healthcare workers.
Thank you again for spending some time with me. It's always a pleasure to connect with you, and I hope to connect with you once everything is, you're out of Hôtel-Dieu, and then we can kind of talk about what's next for you, right? So
freedom, yes, absolutely. I will look forward to that. Freedom from the Monday to Friday, and the 24/7, because it's not Monday to Friday. But yeah, I am looking forward to having conversations in terms of what is retirement like, because I don't know what it's going to be like. I've never done it before, so it'll be a new adventure.
God bless you. Jan, thank you as always, and give my best to everybody, and thank you for making some time with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Good night. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you too. Jan Kaffer, who is the CEO and president of Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. Awesome lady. Very happy to have her on the program. And as you can tell, she's ready to enjoy some time with her family and have some time with the community as well. So it'd be interesting to see where Jan is going to land and how to keep active in retirement as well. I suspect that she's got a lot of things that are going to be on the go, and a lot of community organizations that'll be just as blessed to have her on a board level standpoint as well. So great advice, great stories, and just great conversation here on the show tonight. So thank you, Jan. And if you'd like to read a little bit more about her blog, you can go to the website, Hôtel-Dieu Grace's website. It's on the screen, hdgh.org. So that's going to do it for episode 40 here on the program tonight. We appreciate your time and Jan's time watching or listening to the show after the fact. Don't forget, you can go to my website and connect with all the different content that we have here on a daily basis, armsbumanlag.com, podcasts and videos, and so much more. It's all in one stop, armsbumanlag.com. You can also search for us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube as well. We're back Monday night with Scott St. Amour from Paper Heroes. Very excited to have him on the program, so we'll chat with him this Monday at 8 o'clock. Have a great rest of the evening. Thanks for watching the show.